Hello, hello, beautiful people, mi gente bella. Welcome to another edition of Santana Says, where we talk about everything from Roblox to relationships, everything in between, and the overall journey of life. I am excited as always to bring you another edition of the show, to get into another great conversation. I apologize because apparently my voice has been doing weird things this week. And so I don't know what's going on. I have not recovered. It started a little bit last week and then it's been all over the place. So y'all just gonna get a little bit of extra rasp and something different, and I can't be doing my sing-songy as much as I usually do, but yes, I am here. And so here, and I promise you I have no other symptoms of anything else, but the voice is just doing its thing. All right, but so, hello everyone. I am excited to, once again, that this is another episode with myself. And so we will be having some more guests and people coming on. But as always, I like to come in between and talk to you about some things, check in, but also just catch up, on all things that we've been doing and plan to do. And so we are now in a new month, September. We are also launching basically a new season of the show. We're going into some new topics and all these things. September, there's actually two things that that I would like to shed light on. One of them is the fact that it is Suicide Prevention Month. So it's like suicide awareness, all of those things. It's also the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month, which I love. So siendo a very proud Latina, I'm super excited that we are going to definitely be delving into things Latino or Latine, with Latina guests, and so with different people, and so Latinx, Latino, whichever one you would like to. So, but those are the things that we're gonna get into. Actually, is like a little bit about the terminology, and then a little bit about what we're gonna get into. But one, I would like to first start off by checking in and just saying, how are you? Because if you're anything like me, it is that last quarter of the year, y'all. We only got a few months left, and if you're like me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling it a little bit. Okay, it's a little heavy. I have been exhausted, but not necessarily in all bad ways. It's just that there's just a lot of new things starting, and so I am trying to get adjusted. So I would love for this to be an opportunity. Like I said, I know I've been having a check in on myself. I would love for you all to do the same. If you have not done that, you might want to check in, see how you are. Make sure that you do finish this year off as strongly as possible, because it is definitely, there's so much left for us to be able to get done, hopefully, and be productive with. But obviously, if we're not right, those things are not going to be able to go well. And so I do want to check in with that. And speaking of that, when it comes to mental health, you already know that that's a topic I love, hold dear, and always, I'm always going to delve into, but I'm always going to care about. You know what I mean? So even if I'm not having conversations on the show about it, it's always something that I care about. When it comes to suicide prevention, one, I want to make sure that I take a moment to lift up any person that we have lost to suicide. And so any individual that is no longer with us, and unfortunately that was the way that we lost them, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that. One. The other thing is that I want to also send a personal shout out to or at least lift his name up. But I had a cousin by the name of Jesus. He actually is the brother of a guest that we had on the show, Lisette. So her brother, unfortunately, is no longer with us. And so he's someone, whenever I think about the topic of suicide, whenever I'm educating others on it or engaging in conversations about it, he's always where my head goes. And so unfortunately, he was someone we lost in that manner. And I especially, not only do I want to lift him up and, anybody, like I said, like that, because one, I don't want to ever fail to recognize that person's memory, and the fact that how much they meant to us when they were here. But also it's just the fact that in his case, especially, and so many others, there are so many battles that people fight, and unfortunately, they don't always win, and they happen internally, and they're very severe, that is a thing. And so I think that I've hope that by now I have done a pretty good job. And if you're new to the show, then hey, check me out. You know what I mean? Check out a few episodes on the topic. But there is a lot that people go through. And I hope that I've done a pretty good job of covering, or at least talking about the fact that there are so many issues that, if ignored, unnoticed, or not dealt with, can absolutely take a very big toll on people. And so that is one of the biggest ways, though, is the suicide piece. And I feel that I can't talk about that enough in our world, but also given the population that I serve. I am at a high school. There are a lot of students who have either considered it, have told me that they have attempted it in the past, or unfortunately too, they speak about it a little bit too normally, to the point where, whether they're considering it or not, they almost make it seem like it's something that is very common, that like everybody in the world is experiencing it, or like, you know, that it's something that's okay to say jokingly, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I just want to kill myself, or I just wish I wasn't here anymore, or I wish this person would cease to exist, or things like that. And it's just like, I hear that thrown around, and I just want to be clear that like it's definitely nothing that we should be joking with, but I can totally understand why we do, because many other things I've talked about, it's always going to be easier to digest something when we do make a joke about it, and when we do put laughter around it. But when it comes to this topic, there's nothing simple about it, especially because my main thing with suicide and anything that leads to anything in this area is that if you have come to the point with your mental health that this is the one option that you feel is best, that is the part that I find incredibly tragic, that there were no other options that this person felt were the best ones for them, that unfortunately this is what they decided to consider instead. That's always what I feel like is the saddest part. Not that it happened, not just that it happens, right? Not just that it exists, and not just that unfortunately some people have taken part in it, but the fact that their thought process leading up to it, I feel like is what I struggle with, because because of course, if you leave it up to me, I wish I could talk to everyone, you know what I mean? Be in that person's ear, like lend them some support. Please let them know that they are not alone, that they have people that, you know, if they want to talk, that there are resources, and that, you know, that I could be a resource if I could, you know what I mean? If I could possibly talk to everyone. And although I know that that's not the case, I just don't like knowing that there are people out there who get to a point where that is what they consider, and also that they feel that alone, that they would rather leave here, or they feel that their existence is no longer valuable enough to continue. Like, those are always the thoughts that I feel like, you know, with all the different topics that we have covered on the show, we always are in that area of talking about those things. But that's what I want to make sure is driven home, is that the reason why I like to bring up these mental health topics, the reason why you're going to hear from people on the show that are going to bring you some form of encouragement or empowerment, the reason why we're always going to delve into them as much as we can and make sure we don't neglect that internal peace in the process, is because of these reasons. Is because I don't want you feeling any discouraging thoughts in the comfort of your home. I don't want you to be beating yourself up and thinking that you are not worth it. I don't want you to believe things, negative things that people have told you, and now have them become part of your identity. I do not want you to move in the world in a way where you feel like you don't matter and that you shouldn't be, you know, doing things. And I just don't want you to feel like your struggle is insignificant, or that your existence is insignificant. And I want that to be clear, that all of our existences absolutely matter. We all have things to contribute. We are not here without a purpose, but that purpose can get very muddled. And it also can be very hard to identify when we do not have good things going for us, when we don't have something to live for. And so I know that that's not something I can say enough, or something that I will ever get tired of repeating enough, just because that is what I'm trying to avoid, is any of those feelings of, you know, that insignificance, those feelings of invalidation, and those feelings of just not mattering to anyone, and just really that relationship that you have with yourself and not mattering to yourself, and not feeling that you need to prioritize yourself. So, you know, because we do it in other ways also where we don't. And so, like, with myself, given the fact that I'm tired, and apparently that's why my voice is like this, right? Like, I'm in a place where I've been moving, and I obviously have not been replenishing enough. I'm clearly an example of that. But the fact that we do need to schedule breaks. We do to make sure that we are continuing to take time for ourselves. That is going to be happening for me next week. And so, but it is interesting that I did have to schedule it. Like, it was not going to happen if I did not carve out the time, put it on my calendar, and really commit to it, because now with school beginning, you know, I know y'all heard I'm a parent. I do this. I have my babies in school. They do all the things. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but with that comes new activities. And so they're now running around. So we're trying to adjust to where we were just on a break, and now we're still getting used to the new routine, the new things we have to do. And I do go around to a lot of different places. And so in one day, the things that I probably get done in 24 hours to many would probably seem impossible. And you know, almost, you know, too much to bear, but I have figured out a rhythm with it and do it. But the thing that I always have to make sure that still happens is the breaks that I carve out into it. And I definitely, for any of those who are busy individuals, much like myself, who have children like myself, or who are just trying to make it and figure things out, I don't want you to ever forget that piece, right? To still check in, to still take a break for yourself, and please prioritize your mental health in the middle of it. Don't allow yourself to get so busy that no longer becomes a priority, and that you're not also checking in on those around you, right? And those who you know that you need to do it for yourself also, but I'm pretty sure there are others in your community or in your network that may need a check-in as well. You know what I mean? Given that things are getting harder in the year, we're getting later into the year, and there are other things that are now on our plates. And so I want to make sure that we're doing that. And that's also why in months to come, we are going to also be touching on the holidays and how, once again, the dichotomy of them being these great things that we can celebrate, but again, the difficulties that come around the holidays and the stress that sometimes they can cause, in addition to, once again, those great joyful moments. And so we're going to keep building y'all up. I mean, don't get me wrong. Anybody's saying that we're going to only focus on depressing things or things that cause sadder feelings, because again, I don't always want to make things seem like they're all part of the depression family, when sometimes they're just sad or we just might be upset. But there will be a myriad of things that we're going to be talking about. But as I mentioned, it is also going to be Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month is always interesting, right? Because it starts on September 15th and it ends on October 15th. So for many, I mean, that's probably like a little bit weird to like conceptualize, like why does it not start at the beginning? But I can tell you that is because it is in an effort to honor the Independence Day celebrations of several different countries. Mexico is one of them. There's, so many other Latino countries. And I know of some events that are going to be taking place here in Cleveland, which is where we're coming from, but also around the world. There are many things. I'm pretty sure locally you could probably look into them. If you are all considering them, I definitely encourage you to take part in wherever it might be and however you can, do that. But it is an interesting one because it does honor the independence days of many different countries. And there are some countries, much like, of course, I'm going to make sure I always lift up Puerto Rico. There are some like Puerto Rico who do not have independence days that unfortunately they can celebrate because, again, they're under colonial rule, if you will. And so, Puerto Rico is definitely in that place. I mean, I definitely think it's a great time, however, to honor all of the Latino cultures. Hispanic Heritage Month is meant for that. Of course, as y'all have heard in previous episodes, I take issue with the term Hispanic. I mean, I know that it's used, but I, of course, prefer to use anything like Latino, Latina, Latine, Latinx, even Latinx. I would prefer to use those terms only because I like to take a nod to Latino culture and Latino countries. I don't necessarily like Hispanic because that's more of a nod to Hispaniola and Spanish, more the place, and, Spain and, that part. And so not everyone, well, a lot of people that are Latino do in fact speak Spanish, but not every Latino person is from Spain, is what I want to make sure is clear. And so there are Spanish people that are from Spain and, and use that, but not all Latinos are from Spain. And so there are a lot of Latinos from different places. Peru, you got Dominicans, you got Nicaragua, you got El Salvador. I mean, you just have so many places and use so many rich histories and so many wonderful cultures that can be celebrated. And so Hispanic Heritage Month gives us an opportunity but that was a term that was coined here in America. And so here in the United States, that is what we refer to as, but it is a great time to celebrate, like you just heard, that heritage piece and be able to get into those celebrations and all of that. And what you will definitely know is that I'm going to always use this as an opportunity to say that it's a great time to celebrate Afro-Latinidad. And so I know I have said before a little bit, some pieces about how that has always been a very important thing to me. But to those who might not have heard about it before, I am a proud Afro-Latina. And so I definitely, Afro-Latina meaning that I actually acknowledge my African ancestry, and also, you know, the fact that that is just part of our culture and all of those things. And so I recently found myself educating some students on Bomba y Plena, which are some historical dances that take place in, you know, Puerto Rico. And so they date back all the way to slavery times. But these were done by Black people. Okay, so like these are Black people that, you know, did it in their respective places. And so when they do participate in Bomba y Plena, these are dances where you actually are communicating with the instruments. So like in this case, the drums. You know what I mean? You are actually taking those rhythms there. You're stripping back everything else. Like this Bomba y Plena is not about like a whole orchestra of people and, you know, adding all these things, even though those are beautiful elements of music. I mean, do not get me wrong. I love me a good beat that is produced, that has all of these great things and, you know, can produce a sound unlike any other. I love it, you know, but I just want to remind us that Bomba y Plena at its core is essentially, you know, those who participate in it, they wear these wonderful white garments. Sometimes they can wear other colors as well, but I know the ones that I love seeing is those white garments, they have these wonderful skirts that they wear. They have the great head wraps that they put on. There are drummers that are there that also take part, and they put on these incredible, not just shows, but just such an incredible communication and conversation, I would say, between the drummer and the dancer. And so the drummers, they produce whatever their beat is, and the way that the dancers respond, you know, and come alive to the drum and communicate with it is unlike any other. And I love that they're able to do that with just the dancer, with just the drummer, and with just the audience. And it's not, they don't need any other extra things in it. And I just love whenever we're able to go back to those things. And so Loíza is one of the places that, you know, still to this day, they celebrate that. And that's Loíza is a place in Puerto Rico, for those who don't know. And it is wonderful to see that has that, but that again is performed primarily by those who were, you know, like I said, were trying to communicate different messages during slavery time and beyond. And so to this day, it's definitely such a great, rich part of our history. And so I just love to be able to see that. And I feel like what I love about Hispanic Heritage Month, but anytime there is to celebrate our Latino history, is that we can also acknowledge our indigenous ancestry. And so I always love being able to talk more about that and like stripping that back and what our indigenous roots look like and, you know, what elements are part of them. And so today, for those who can actually see me, I am wearing my Taino shirt. So like it has the Taino sun on it. You can also see my Taino tattoo, which I've also, you know, made mention to. For those who cannot see me, however, that is what I do have, as I said, but also I just love being able to remind others of that part of the Taino culture that goes into those who are Puerto Ricans. And so Puerto Ricans, again, part African, they are part Taino, and they are part Spaniard. And so the Spaniard is in there, the Spanish is absolutely spoken, and actually as a result, I'm actually hoping to have one of our episodes be in Spanish. So y'all gonna hear a little bit more of that Espanol. So those who have been rocking with me, hear me, you know what I'm saying, that are tuning in from areas with Spanish speakers, y'all gonna hear some Spanish, I promise you. we gonna work that in. But I appreciate everybody who's been listening in English. But Taino, I love it. I love any nod to that part of our ancestry when it comes to Puerto Ricans. And like I mentioned, being Afro-Latina, I love being able to recognize that, because with all the melanin that I have in my skin, I would never consider myself a white person, at least in my case, because that is not anything that I, you know, feel connected to, and that is not something that I could identify with. But as a result, I have always struggled to see individuals in the media, that also coincide with that, that celebrate that, and that I could connect or relate to. And so I would definitely shout out Julissa, which is one of the actresses. I believe, I mentioned her in the past, but she was on Gentified in the past. She's also participated in many other shows. She has a Dream and Manifest journal that she sells. She's one, for example, that I love. She's one actress that, is wonderful, that, is, Afro-Latina. There are some others. I used to actually shout out Amara La Negra a lot as well, but Amara, I'm starting to get a little troublesome relationship with her, only because the way she shows up in the media is interesting. And so, she's an interesting person to, in general, like the presence she has is quite great, but the things that she has been wrapped up in have not always been necessarily things that I would particularly want to celebrate, me personally, but I understand that they probably generate a lot of revenue for her. And so that is what I'll say, is that I can see it. I can see why she participates in the things that she takes part in, but not all of them are things that I would necessarily support. However, I love to see that there are more people joining in on those conversations. And so I, like I said, like to join myself among that. And so I love that, during Hispanic Heritage Month, it's a great time for us to remember and celebrate our Latino heritage, our Latino cultural principles, but also the different identities that exist within the Latino community. And I also tend to say the word Latino a lot, because for me, I know that in Spanish, a lot of words in Spanish are actually masculine. And so you're going to hear, it is a little bit maybe patriarchal in nature, but it is interesting that even if we have a group of people, as soon as a male enters that space, you describe that space in a masculine way versus feminine. You would not say that it is a Latina space, Latina being for females that ends with A. You would say that it's a Latino space. Like, you would immediately change that A to an O and describe it in a masculine way. Yes, that is interesting, but I just, as a person who speaks Spanish and as a native Spanish speaker, that's always what my mind goes to when I hear the term, but I understand why it's not inclusive, given the work that I do and then given the spaces that I occupy and, the awareness that I am trying to bring. So I know that Latino is definitely not inclusive for many reasons. I tend to say it only phonetically just because of, the way how I learned Spanish. But I understand that it's not necessarily the most inclusive term. I myself don't know. However, when the term Latinx came up, I wasn't necessarily somebody that immediately liked it. I like that it provided a different term than Latino. That was the part I did like and did appreciate. I wasn't necessarily a fan of it, however, because I don't necessarily like terms where there's an X, so there's something crossing off, the ending. So it's almost like there wasn't an identity. Like, it was really just, we're taking a stand against the Latino identity by crossing it off altogether. I just didn't like that was the symbol used, that there was an X. And so it was essentially crossing things off. I have actually taken to the term Latine and have liked that one a lot. I like how it's not, I don't immediately think of a female. I don't immediately think of a male when I hear that term. I just hear a lot. I feel like I'm just hearing about a Latino person. So like, I'm thinking more about the cultural piece behind it. And so I like that it doesn't immediately make me think of one or the other, but I just want folks to know. So when I use the term Latino, I'm not thinking of a male, and it's not that I'm trying to make everything masculine in nature. I'm just thinking about the way I learned the language. And so like, as I learned it, I became very used to using the word Latino to describe myself and to describe my culture and, my upbringing in that way. But I do like Latine. I like Latine a lot. I like to use it very often. And I like that at the same time we're challenging our terms, right? And so we're developing new languages around how we should describe it. But I also like that we have a month. I just want to always remind us, though, that if you need a month to celebrate your diversity, then that is a very big indication that there's still work that needs to be done. And so the fact that it's not a regular part of our conversation and there's actually a month dedicated to it, that's why, there's some issues behind that. That definitely means that it's still not common enough, right? That we are dedicating enough time to it, that we still need months of awareness around certain cultures. The fact that we still have Black History Month, the fact that we have to denote it with a month, and that there has to be these separate celebrations for cultures that are very significant and have done a lot for our places, but we still have to denote them and bring awareness around them, because not everybody does celebrate them or is even aware of them or understands the importance and contributions that Latine and other people of color have done. And so that's just an interesting thing to do. And the fact that that's needed. Same thing with Suicide Prevention Month. If there's a month that is around a certain issue, I love it. I'm glad we can stand behind it. It's just sad that we need it. You know what I'm saying? That we're not educated enough on certain topics that we need a month of awareness. That's the only part I feel like I said, might be slightly disappointing, but it's also an opportunity. And so I always like to use them as a chance to grow more conversations, to have more celebrations. And if we can increase awareness, why not? You know what I'm saying? Why don't we use it as a perfect excuse to do that and to build people up, let them know what's happening and ways they can be involved. And so preview, y'all, of what's to come. We are going to be having some guests in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. You know, I know I'm going to take they're still going to mention mental health things, so we still will be touching on suicide prevention, but we are definitely planning to have them. Like I said, I know one of the individuals that plan to have on actually speaks Spanish primarily, so I'm actually hoping to delve more into a conversation with her in that native language and have y'all hear it. We will probably most likely be translating as well, so you can still hear some of the English, but you know, y'all can hear a little bit of Spanish, you know what I'm saying? Get that little bit of flair, hear that, you know, and engage in that. So I'm hoping y'all tune into that and love it and let me know about it. I definitely also hope to have some more business owners, people that have started, formed their own paths and have done things. I'm also excited to talk to a trailblazer, somebody that is a Latina person in a STEM field, and you know, we don't never hear about that enough. I'm so glad that we had someone that was an engineer on the show who isn't necessarily still in the field of engineering, but like has delved into it and has that experience. But I actually plan on bringing somebody on that's currently in that field, who is Latina, who is also a female, and like what that looks like and how, you know, how it's been navigating that space and, you know, what it is and how they even got into it in the first place. So that's a little bit about what we have coming. What we also just wrapped up, however, was, you know, we did have some things on National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. We also just celebrated Black Business Month, and it was during a month of many celebrations. I actually had a lot of weddings, y'all. I don't know if it's just that season, but I've been going to a lot of weddings lately, so shout out to everybody getting married or deciding that that is a great thing to do. I've been having a blast, you know what I'm saying, just celebrating and taking part. And so all of those things have been happening. And so with that, we're going to keep the celebrations going. We are going to keep the conversations rolling, and we are definitely going to do it. Look, my voice finally came back towards the end. Great. So I'm glad we could do that. But again, thank you so much for tuning in, for supporting, for, you know, rocking. And so please know that, again, if there's anything ever that I say that you like, that you want to know more about, that you would like to engage in a conversation with me on, please find me and let me know about that. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? If you have an idea, if you ever see yourself being on the show, if you also just want to talk more about what was said on it, any exchange, y'all, I'm open to it. So on Instagram, you can find me Santana Says with 1_ at the end. That is the same handle for TikTok. I'm actually Santana Says with 1_ on there as well. There's 2_ at the end for the app formerly known as Twitter, but you know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all really on there, but technically I still got a page. Facebook, though, we also do have a page where you can actually like Santana Says. So if you're feeling it, you liking it, there is a spot on there for you to also do it. And you know, like I said, whichever one, but whatever platform you like best, whatever way you want to connect, hit me up, reach out. I would love to talk to you, get to know you, and grow the conversation further by using your feedback. And so thank you as always. Looking forward to connecting with y'all. And you know, every other Friday, we're going to keep bringing you that heat, and just look out for Feel Good Friday. Then we're going to keep it going. Thank you.